Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of CastingAcross.com, where I explore the quarry culture of fly fishing. This is episode 365, which means a year ago, if you started listening to one episode a day, you now would be completing a feat that I certainly wouldn't have suggested you undertake, but kudos to you. I don't think that happened. But also, I think what this really indicates is that there are enough things to talk about in fly fishing to give you at least 365 episodes of content. Because we're talking about today is something that I was confident that I have explored on the podcast or even on the website, but I haven't, at least not with specificity. Now, it has to do with casting. And I've talked about casting quite a bit. I've talked about how you can improve your casting. I've talked about both from a practice standpoint as well as when you're on the water. I've talked about some of the challenges that we face from a technique standpoint and ways we can fix that with slight modifications to the way we position our body, the way we hold our fly rod, the stroke and the cadence that we utilize, the application of pressure, some of these normal fly casting things that are really essential as you try to improve and tweak your fly cast. And I've talked about things that originate outside of us that are problematic. So there are times where our positioning is dictated by the topography of the stream as well as the positioning of the trout. And so we can't necessarily get into a perfect position to make that 10 and 2 cast. And so we have to get creative and ways that you can work around that, ways you can work around cover ahead of you, behind you, in front of you. And all of those things I see that I've covered in one way or another, again, both on the podcast and on the website. But one topic I've not talked about that I know I've talked about, but just not in depth, is wind. Wind is a problem. Not only is wind a problem, but it's a problem we blame things on. We say, hey, I've got a wind knot. The wind does not cause knots. Now, I will say there are times where the wind contributes to you throwing a tailing loop and getting a knot in your tippet or your leader, but it's not the wind's fault. So wind can be really tricky. And actually, as this is being recorded, I just got a text message from my power company saying, we know that there's going to be strong winds tonight, and we are ready to, save you from not having electricity. And not a lot of people see that kind of text message, watch a weather report, look outside into the trees swaying back and forth and say, you know what, I'm going to go get a fly rod and go fishing. Because wind, in some ways, is even more problematic to the fly caster and the fly angler than things like rain or things like extreme heat, extreme cold. All of those things, their cumulative effect can certainly be problematic for finding fish, catching fish, and doing so in a safe way. But in the moment, you can handle some heat, you can handle some cold, you can handle some precipitation, snow for that matter. But wind can really put a damper on your fishing in that moment. However, it doesn't have to. So really, you can come at this from two different angles. One is we can look at the issue of casting in the wind as being don't let those bad weather days keep you off the water. And two, it can be, an intermittent thing that you have to work around. I think of one particular spot when I would fish the Erie tributaries for steelhead or Lake One rainbows, depending on your proclivities. There was a place where the river got really wide, and there was a big sheer cliff on one side and a meadow on the other of this little river. And it would be totally calm if you were in the woods, if you were, oriented kind of more north-south. But once you got into this east-west stretch where it was really open, the wind would just kick up. And that would do a couple of things. One, it would make the water ripple. So it was a very smooth-flowing portion of stream, which is awesome because you could spot these fish feeding and holding and make some nice, precise casts to them. So with these ripples on the water, now you couldn't do that. But then secondly, just kind of flipping your fly over, and really one of the ways I like fishing for these fish was finding a precisely weighted fly. So I didn't have to mess too much with weight or with casting upstream far enough. I like to find the right weighted fly and just flip it out and allow it to drift down in front of the fish. And you couldn't do that with the wind. You had to make an actual cast, and now the trajectory of the fly in the water messed up that formula. All that to say, wind isn't necessarily a global problem when you're fishing. It can sometimes be a particular problem to that spot or that stretch. And so this isn't an issue of you saying, well, if it's a really windy day, I'm not going to go fishing. Well, wind can kick up from place to place and from time to time. And so it's good to have some of these skills. So with all that long preamble out of the way, let's talk about a few things that you can do. The first one, and all of these I'm certainly not me. This is just, years of experience and lots of reading and casting instruction and being instructed in casting and trial and error. And these are things that hopefully you've heard in one way or another. And if you know most of them, maybe you don't know one of them. So hopefully it will still be beneficial. The first thing is to lower that cast. So as I've talked about fly casting before, you've probably heard one of my pet peeves is people saying, this is how you have to cast. You have to have your arm in this particular orientation. You have to have your shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand in this particular orientation to fly cast. Well, I think the intention with that is to eliminate variables. And I talk about that a lot too when I talk about fly casting. By having certain parts of your body that are essential to a fly cast in a fixed position, certainly they're moving, but fixed in relation to one another. Your elbow to your side, your wrist has a limited range of motion. You're casting as much with your core as you are with your arm, things like that. That's a great thing in principle. But when the conditions or the circumstances force you to change, you need to apply those principles and you need to add a variable in. So the variable for a windy day is to drop that arm sideways and cast sidearm, keeping that line low to the water. And some of that is, it does a couple of things. One, depending on where you're fishing, there's a good chance that there's more wind higher up than lower down. This has to do with just the banks and the streamside vegetation. That can really, really be beneficial. Secondly, this allows you to control how much of your line is moving in multiple planes. So ideally, you want your line moving in your back cast and in your forward cast in as much as a singular plane as possible. But when the wind kicks up, this starts to make that line move in whatever direction that wind is going in. This can, of course, allow your line to collapse on itself in your forward cast, so come back to you, on your back cast, so come back to you, but kind of punching itself forward before you begin to apply power, or side to side, having it collapse over to the left or to the right. By dropping that fly line down a couple feet above the water, what that does is it really lowers that line's plane down and eliminates the ability for that side-to-side collapsing to happen. A big gust coming upstream or downstream will also be detrimental, but again, you're not super high up in that air column. You're down closer to the water, and so it's not going to be as detrimental to you. So that's I would say the first thing, and all of that fancy attempt at explaining it, just you drop your arm sideways, you keep that fly rod low, maybe between a 45 or a little bit lower than that down towards the water, but your line is now below your fly rod. So as you're casting and you make your back cast, your line, leader, tippet, and fly is going to come underneath your fly rod, and it's going to be in between your fly rod, which is again is a 45 or lower towards the water, and then when you make your forward cast, it's going to come back underneath your fly rod. It's eliminating the amount that wind can impact that cast. That is oftentimes one of the most easy ways to quickly get a good cast out when there is wind. And I would say that in some senses, it's an easy cast, but it's also not going to be the most accurate cast because you think about it. If you're trying to position a fly perfectly, you don't necessarily always think about the fact that when you make that forward application of power, that fly line is unrolling from behind you, rolling out in front of you. Now that fly is coming and dropping down at the point of presentation that you want to make. And what's happening is that fly is unrolling and then dropping. If you're casting with a sidearm motion, when that happens, that fly is going to continue to kick towards you. So if you're a right-handed caster, inevitably that line, leader, and fly is going to continue to dogleg to the left, or if it's low to the water, it's going to drop to the right of your target because it hasn't had a chance to unroll yet because your line is low to the water, and line, leader, and fly are going to hit the water before it has an opportunity to unroll. So it does take practice. You can do it. It's certainly something that you can do, but whereas a normal cast, that unrolling fly oftentimes lands at least in a line to where you're aiming. When you're casting sidearm, it not only will fail to get as far if it doesn't unroll properly, but if it unrolls, it doesn't unroll quickly enough, it's going to be, again, if you're a right-handed caster, it's going to be to the right of your target and short. And if you allow it to unroll too much, if it drops after that line unrolls, then it's going to be short of your target and in front of you and to the left, as opposed to where you are targeting. So that's a lot. As I said before, fly casting talk is not the ideal medium, but here we are. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is a very easy one, but it's a potentially expensive one if you are simple in the way you approach fly fishing, and that is to overline your rod, or B, carry a heavier setup. So the simplest one is to overline your rod. So you have a 5-weight. Well, throw a heavier 6-weight fly line on there, and what that's going to do is it's going to speed up your line. And a faster cast is going to, or a faster stroke, faster line speed, higher line speed is going to mitigate the impact of the wind on your line as you're making that cast. I don't believe that going from like a 3-weight to a 4-weight, the diameter of that's going to be like a sail and catch that line a whole lot more and cause problems. But I think that what you're getting the benefit of is a faster line speed from a heavier grain weight of that fly line. And by making a faster cast, you are punching through that wind. So that can be easily done by just throwing another reel on there. If that doesn't do it, then you can also kind of beef up both your line and your rod, and now you are, casting a heavier line, and you're able to punch it a little bit more. This is a very, very simple thing to, I think, visualize. You don't think of, punching a 3-weight into the wind, but a 6-weight you can certainly do that with. And a lot of that has to do not necessarily with the flex of the rod, the length of the rod, the action of the rod, the strength of the butt section, or the rigidity of the tip of the rod. A lot of it has to do with that fly line. If I'm fishing on the coast and it's a windy day, then the 10-weight's coming out. If I'm fishing on the coast and I know the fish are going to be up close, I'm okay with throwing an 8-weight. But if there's going to be wind, especially if I have a heavy fly, this is true also for streamers if you're fishing freshwater. One of the benefits, I think, of bulking up is you limit the amount of, you speed up how fast your line is moving. Secondly, you're also getting a lot more control. Those heavier flies, whether it be a size 2 woolly bugger on a 6-weight, or whether it be, a 1/0 clouser on a 9-weight, you are really having a better control of the trajectory of that fly in the wind. It's not dropping. And I don't want that. The cast is important. The presentation is important. But I don't want that thing dropping when I'm making my presentation cast and coming at the back of my head or coming at my shoulder or my ear or something like that. And with a lighter line, that is more of a possibility because I don't have the same line speed and the same control. Actually, it has happened to me a few years ago. It was early season because I was in waders. I like fishing just, in my swim trunks from at the beach. So it was early season. Although here in New England, we have like 1 month where the water's warm. It can be, 95 degrees outside, but the water in like early July is still just bone chilling. Anyway, so I was out there in my waders and big cast, trying to keep my arm nice and high to make sure the breakers aren't, hitting my shirt and get me wet and cold. And a wind kicked up as that line was coming back towards me. So I made my haul, pulled it back, turned my head, and I saw just a tangle of line coming at me. I closed my eyes, dropped my chin, and it felt like I got shot by a BB gun in the chest. And I looked down, and there was a clouser dangling from the chest of my waders. Thankfully, I use some good stuff to patch up my waders. Hey, maybe that'll be my recommendation at the end of the podcast. But it was also really high up, not where I usually wade, like kind of almost dead center at like the bottom of my sternum. So uplining or just using a heavier rod. I think those are some great ways to mitigate the impacts of wind. There are certainly more techniques that we could talk about, but the last one I'll throw in here for today is one that I think is probably a universal tip for fly casting, and that is to limit your false casting. Limit your false casting. The more your line is up in the air, there's more opportunities for problems. And that's definitely true when the conditions are windy. If you are fishing in a situation where there's gusts and it's not necessarily sustained wind, then as things calm down, you pick that line up, you shoot it backwards, you haul it forwards, and you make your presentation. And although the wind may have come up again, you're not carrying a bunch of fly line up in the air. You haven't aerialized a whole bunch, and now the wind is hitting it. You take those moments, and if it's really gusty, really windy, then, especially if you're fishing a fly that can be submerged, then you can wait. And you hear those wind through the trees, you hear it crescendo as it starts to die down, you strip it in, you make your back cast, you make your haul forward, and then you're good. And this is an economy of fly line in the air. It's good for this. It's good for all fishing. You are never going to catch fish. Well, let me put it this way. You're very unlikely to catch a fish with your fly line in the air. And I don't think I know that a lot of us false cast too much. False casting is a Band-Aid solution for not making an efficient haul off of the water into our back cast and generating enough line speed. Oftentimes it's a lot of lines stripped in, and then kind of a cumbersome back cast, and then a quick haul forward, and then back, forward cast. What that does is it does the job, but there's another way. There's a better way, and that is to get some tension on that fly line on the water, haul into a nice back cast, utilizing that tension to kind of leverage your fly line into some momentum, and then just make a good forward cast. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but it's achievable. It's obtainable, and it's a way to keep your fly line out of the air so that you're fishing more, and then also if there are gusts or even sustained winds, you're not fighting it. A corollary with that, I would say, is just position yourself better. I know there's some times where you can't get closer to the fish, but a very, very stealthy approach and taking your sweet time and doing that will pay off dividends compared to trying to bomb out long casts, especially if there's environmental situations that you are having to reckon with, such as wind. Moving closer, if it's an option, is going to be beneficial, because even if it's 5 feet, 10 feet, that's a lot. The difference between a 40-foot and 50-foot cast, if you have gusts on that stream, is a big deal. And you're going to save yourself a lot of headache. You're going to save yourself a lot of wind knots. You're going to save yourself, just a lot of time. And so that's really another aspect of that. So yeah, an economy of false casts and position yourself better. So I'll put those together so I can say three things, right? So if we were to go through them again, one, have your good casting technique so that when you mess with a variable, such as the angle of your rod and the angle of your elbow compared to your rod, then you can still make those casts. So drop that fly line lower to the water and make those sidearm casts. Secondly, add some weight to your line. So up line your rod, go from a 5 to a 6 weight line, the same rod you were planning on using, or a 7 to a 6, whatever it may be. Or just use a heavier rig than you're used to. Those trout are still going to fight on that 6 weight. You don't have to just use a 4 weight. And then lastly, add some economy into the way you cast your false casting, and put yourself in a situation so that you have to cast shorter and false cast less. All right, so there's certainly more we could talk about with casting in the wind, and as I always mention when I talk about fly casting on the podcast, these are things to go do yourself. Mess with these things I've talked about out on the lawn, on the river. Watch a video of somebody actually doing these things, and toy with them. You might say, I hate casting sidearm. Okay, well then just eliminate your false casting and get close to your target. There's that. You say, I only want to own one fly rod. I don't like this idea of messing with different lines and different rods. All right, that's fine. Then drop that arm down lower and limit your false casts, and you'll be in good shape. It's fun. I mean, the fish are still going to eat, right? Unless the situation gets crazy weather-wise, but the fish are still going to eat. This week on Casting Across, the first article that came out was called My 3 Biggest Catches, with a picture of a tiny trout. See, that's the joke. And here, this is a continued 10-year retrospective look at what I've been doing here on Casting Across. I put the 3 articles that have gotten the most views, the most clicks. This is not posts. So I've got, pages. There's pages where I've got reviews of stuff and some kind of aggregate stuff. Some of those have gotten a lot more clicks because lots of different articles and search engine stuff funnels things that way. These are 3 individual posts. One of them was just blows my mind. It got the amount of traffic that it got. And then the other 2 make a lot of sense because they're talking about stuff that a lot of people read and a lot of people come to Casting Across to read about, rod reviews and small stream equipment. So definitely check that out, especially if you're new to Casting Across. Go see if you haven't read these before. I would encourage you to read all 3 of them. So I have links to all of them on that page or that post, as well as a little commentary about each particular post. Wednesday's article was called Video Consistently Fishable Spring Creeks, and in which I have a video on YouTube that you can watch on the website about a book called Spring Creeks by Mike Lawson. This book came out in 2003, I believe, and it's an awesome book. I've got a bunch of books about Spring Creeks, but they're all written by East Coast authors. And so this is cool because this is a Western author talking about spring creeks out west. Now, a lot of the skills are transferable, not only to eastern spring creeks, but also tailwaters and freestone streams. But it's a great book to read, full of incredibly helpful information about approach, about tactics, about the ecosystem, about the way that trout feed, given some of the peculiarities about spring creeks related to other creeks. And the pictures are absolutely stunning. It's a large format book from Stackpole, and I'm a big, big fan of it. So you please watch that video. And then, of course, go over to YouTube and like and subscribe, as the kids likes to say. All right, this week's recommendation on the podcast. It is from Loon, the good people at Loon Outdoors. And one of the products that I am a big fan of from Loon is their Gear Care line of equipment. And they've got a handful of different things. They got a reel case, they've got tethers, they've got line cleaning stuff, rod wraps, rod sleeves, rod sock, all that sort of stuff. But the one that I think stands head and shoulders above everything is their UV wader repair. Now you can buy this either by itself, a little tube for $10, or for $36, you get UV knot sense, which is something that I use when I am tying nail knots onto my fly line. I also use it when I am building out my heavier leaders, like for streamer fishing and for saltwater fishing. And then there's a little tube of UV wader repair, which is kind of like what you probably get in a teeny tiny little tube when you buy a new pair of waders. This is a larger format of that, and then it also comes with a little UV flashlight that you can throw. I think you just drop a AA in there. So again, if you have a UV flashlight at home, then you can just buy the UV way to repair for $10. You can buy the whole kit for $36. I like that because then I can take it with me, and I keep it all together, and I can use it if I am in a pinch. But it works great. Like I said, I put that big old 1-aught clouser like right dead center into my chest, and put a little dab of this on the inside, put a little dab on the outside after I cleaned it and everything, and it is watertight. It's probably better now than it was before there was a hole in it. So anyway, I will put a link for Loon's UV kit. And again, like you said, if you don't want the knot stuff and you don't want the flashlight, then you can also find their UV wader repair stuff. And you can find all that in a link at this podcast show notes over at castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
Hit the road for fun and heartwarming fishing adventures with the Real American Road Trip.
I just want to hook up one time. I just need to hook up one time.
Catch the Waypoint Original Series every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Waypoint TV channel. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.
I did get a bite. I have gotten a bite. I did feel it.
This is the Hunt Stand Podcast. I'm your host, Will Cooper. Each week, we bring you real hunting stories, proven strategies, and dive into the topics hunters care about most. From chasing your first whitetail to planning a western elk hunt, we cover the conversations that matter to every hunter out there. Tune in, subscribe, and join the hunt, only on the Hunt Stand Podcast.